G'day everyone, my name is Felicity Brand and today I'll be talking about how to write a book. Here it is. How to write a book for and with an open source community. With and for and with. I want to start today with a gratitude statement. I am very grateful for this opportunity to be speaking with you today, particularly in light of the unfortunate recent cancellation of the Australia-India Write the Docs conference, which has been transformed into a super meetup. Just in light of that, it just makes me feel really grateful to be able to have this opportunity to talk with you, and particularly so because I have been trying to improve my speaking. That's a goal that I have set for myself this year, and so I'm trying to do lots and lots of speaking. And here's what I decided. I've done a lot of preparation for this talk today, but you still get really nervous, and I find that I tend to choke. My mind goes blank. It's a disaster. So I thought, Felicity, just give yourself a break. If you're not failing, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, right? And I have a 3.5-year-old at home, and I don't expect her to know how to do things straight away. She needs to fail to learn. We use that term, fail. You need to make mistakes to learn. So why should I expect myself to be able to give a perfect 30-minute presentation without making any mistakes? So you know what? Let's embrace it. We need to make at least 1 or 2 mistakes today in this session. Otherwise, I'm not learning. So let's keep an eye out for those. I wonder what they'll be. The other thing is I'm recording this from home. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. We're currently in lockdown because of the pandemic. So my dog might bark. I have a dog. The dog might bark. Let's just roll with it, okay? So I'm talking about a book. I identify as a technical writer. I call myself a technical communicator. My current job role is communications consultant. I think this is interesting to talk about writing a book because, I've never written a book before. I imagine there are technical writers out there, documentarians, who possibly you may be interested in knowing what the process was like. I'll try and cover the process, and I also thought it was interesting to talk about from a developer relations point of view, and I'll get into that. So I'm currently freelance. I work for a company called Open Strategy Partners. We're an agency of writers who help technical organisations, be they private or open source, communicate the value of what they do. So whether they're trying to increase their user base, grow adoption, perhaps they want more code contributions, perhaps they're just trying to build a community. A lot of that is done through content, creating content, and that is what our agency helps people with. I really enjoy it. So yes, the book. So I'm going to talk about, in order for me to tell you about the book, I'm going to need to tell you about the product and the community. This is not a sales pitch. I don't expect anyone to go out and buy and read this book. But I'm going to need to tell you about the topic of the book. Then I want to tell you about, this is the part that interests me, the process, the tools we used, and then I want to talk about the value. So I didn't really know, when I was in the process of writing this book, I didn't know what was going to happen at the back end of it. And that's, I have more of an idea of that now, and I think it's kind of interesting. So we'll talk about that too. Yeah, let's do the about. So typo 3. Typo3 is a product. It is a CMS, a content management system. So you use it to make websites. It can be headless. It's an enterprise CMS, so it can be massively multi-site, multilingual. It's quite a powerful CMS. It has a mature, thriving community around it. There is a membership association, so you pay like a nominal fee to become a member of the community. They have like, you know, tiers of membership, so you can pay more. So that's, you know, a community of developers, web agencies, all sorts of different types of people. And when they grew in their community and in their user base, they realised that they needed, or that there was space to have a company associated with that. So they have a, let me just get my notes on this because I wanted to tell you about the company, which is a commercial service, and they are 100% owned subsidiary of the association. They're not for profit. I don't know if I'm making that clear. I thought that was quite interesting. So the commercial arm provides support. Like, so if you are a company and you use Typo3 for your website, you want to be confident that, you know, there is support for it. So you can purchase long-term support for the version that you're on. Oh, there's my clock. I've got a clock that does Australian bird sounds, so it must be on the hour. Yes, it is. Just a little bit more. So the company also provides a service for, like, you can get your project audited. They will do like a quality analysis of your project. So anyway, there's they also do like certification, accreditation of your skills. So there's a lot of cool stuff that arm of the community provides. And of course, there is just, you know, your user base. You've got loads of people talking all the time. They have lots of events. It's a thriving and really great community to be a part of. So why did they want to write the book? The product is well known and used in particularly Germany, Northern Hemisphere, but they wanted to grow adoption internationally. So the United States, where I'm from, Australia, New Zealand, those sort of areas. So they thought that a book would be a good idea for that. And they have lots of developers. The developers are too busy to squeeze out a blog post, let alone writing a book. So the association engaged the agency I work for to help them write that. So what I wanted to say was, where you work or the organisation you're involved in, you may not have a CMS. You know, your product may be something entirely different. But what I wanted to try and inspire you with this talk is to consider writing a book yourself. So every time I say CMS, you think about your product and see how it might work for you. Okay, yeah, so there was multiple authors for this book. The publisher wouldn't let us put the Typo3 community as the author, so we had to choose among us, you know, whose names would go on the front cover. So there's myself, my colleague Heather McNamee, and my boss, Jeffrey A. Maguire. Our power, our superpower really was structure, rigor. You know, we're writing all the time, so we could help the Typo3 community try to, I guess, you know, put some structure around their knowledge. It's the first book we've written in the agency, certainly the first book I've ever tried to write. So, yeah, it was a really interesting project, and we learned a lot from it. The book is in 2 parts. Pardon me, I'll try and skip through this because it may bore you. But basically, with my technical writer hat on, 2 parts. We've got 4 chapters in the first part, and then the second part were kind of tutorials, right? The idea was that it catered to as broad a reach of audience or readers as we could appeal to, and it's foundational. There was already some books out there that were quite detailed about how to develop with the CMS, but we really wanted to fill a gap to lay this foundation so that, you know, any future books wouldn't have to then go and, you know, talk about the foundation stuff again. And in addition, there are a lot of resources out there on the web for Typo 3. This book didn't seek to supplant or replace any of that. It really is meant to sit companionably alongside existing resources. All right, so here's our 4 chapters. I was just going to try and speed up a little bit because I thought I might be boring you. With my technical writer hat on, this is kind of like big concept topics, right? So the showroom just talks about the features of the product. Then we talk about, you know, kind of like project planning and designing your website. Building and extending was really getting into the system architecture, and then launching and maintaining is what it says on the tin. Our tutorials, we call them guides. It's not a quick start, but it certainly is trying to help anyone who picks up the book get up and running, so they can follow that sequentially through, and they will they'll have a working website, and they can either, you know, install one we've built for them already, or they can install a fresh copy and kind of build up themselves. So we tried to cover a few different perspectives there as well. We have 2 interesting guides we included, those last 2. So one of them was about if you had a web agency and you wanted to sell Typo 3 to customers. It covers some areas about selling open source and Typo 3 in particular. And the debugging and troubleshooting is quite interesting because obviously, you know, you can't tell someone how to solve a particular issue, but it tells you, I think, 3 or 4 different areas to go and look first. Check this, check that. Did you check this? Oh, and here's a trap for young players. Go and check that. So those were really good guides to include, I think. Okay, let's talk about process. That's just a quote from my colleague Heather. I'll have a sip of water. So, you know, when I first came on this project, I had never seen Typo 3 before, never written a book before. I was used to writing in Flare and RoboHelp, documenting online help for software. So, and I'm reminded of that adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's pretty much what we did. And approaching it like, you know, any tech writer in a job, let's say a new job, or you have to document a technology that you're unfamiliar with, the first thing you do is go and talk to your subject matter experts, right? And you try to elicit information and listen, and you take notes, right? So it was important for us to listen and not only talk about how you would do a thing or how the product did a thing or what it did. We really needed to capture the why. why do people use this? Why is it important? How is this good? What is the use case? Because that's where the value is. Yeah, this is us listening. We went to a lot of community events. We did a lot of interviews. We did face-to-face interviews. We did written interviews. You know, lots of different devs in the community kind of specialised in different areas of the product, and so it was important to hit, target those particular experts. And most devs are, I'm going to generalise, passionate about what they're working on, what they're building, and they're really happy to talk about it. If you can find, you know, the way that they like to communicate. So getting that information was kind of easy, straightforward. We really tried to cover what they liked about it, different use cases, areas that they knew about, what made Typo 3 different in their experience, that sort of thing. And so we ended up with a whole lot of raw data. And this is a picture of my boss, Jeffrey, and overlaid on that is a graphic that we use a fair bit, and it's kind of showing the process that we go through, an article with content in it. Anyway, but the point is the strength that our agency brought to this was our structure and rigour. So, you know, we don't like a blank page as much. We hate a blank page as much as the next person. So we have a lot of things in place to avoid that. We use briefs a lot. So we will start every piece of content that we write with a brief. And that's what we did with the book. So we knew we had this structure of 4 chapters, 10 guides. So then within those chapters, okay, what do we want in here? And that scope setting is really important. Not only what to include, but what not to include. And then it was just a matter of taking that raw data from the interviews with our brief and writing that content. In terms of tools, we worked in Google Docs. We wrote a book in Google Docs. It worked pretty well. We do a lot of internal reviews, so we use the suggestions mode a lot. We use the commenting feature a lot. The other great thing about using Google Docs was how shareable it is. So we could get reviews from people in the community quite easily, just share that with particular people. So they could review while we were writing for accuracy. I also had instances where people from the community would just go in and write whole sections because the spirit moved them, and I could come in after them and edit that. So that came together quite well. We engaged our publisher, A-Press. They have their own process. So they're used to working with single authors, and they have a process that I think helps single authors a lot, which made me think of a conveyor belt. So they kind of say, give us 2 or 3 chapters to start, you hand that over, and then they expect you to do, you know, a chapter a month in this kind of conveyor belt system. So you move gradually along towards your publishing window. We had an internal project manager, so we kind of worked that way, but we certainly needed a project manager as well because we were working with the other areas of the Typo 3 community. So it was really important for us to, this was a community book, right? So we wanted to keep everything kind of self-contained. Our technical reviewers, so after we had written the book, handed it over to A-Press, it then went through their internal review process, like a copy edit, I guess, and then, no, more like a proofread. Then they gave that to our 2 community technical reviewers who reviewed for accuracy. So that was really important. We also engaged the design team. So Typo 3 had their own design team who make graphics for the website and other things, and we wanted them to do the imagery for the book, which they did. The other cool thing is Apress has a GitHub repository for every book. So for our 10 guides, we were able to get members of the community to contribute fully tested code samples to that repo. You know, I remember thinking, oh, I don't want to have to put that code in there, but oh no, it's all right. We'll just get, so 3 people from the community did that for us. So yay for open source. One other thing I wanted to mention was I had to, we used a lot of quotes because we did so many interviews. We quoted many people throughout the book, and kind of right at the end of the process, I realised that I had to get their approval, like legal sign-off, for us to use words that we said they said. So that was just an extra bit of process I had to do, you know, an official legal form with the quote, send it off. They had to sign it, send it back. So yeah, that's just a tip. If you ever do this project, remember that. Oh, this was just a picture of our GitHub repo. There's also a space for errata. And we did have we've got 3 mistakes to date. So it's good that, you know, there's a place to capture that. I'm running out of time. I need to talk faster, but yeah. Yeah, so if we were to do this project again, just highlighting that value of a project manager, because open source is a community of volunteers, yes. What that means is, you know, we were really conscious of working to deadlines, and it's much harder when you're relying on people who are volunteering their time to, you know, get things done by Friday. So that's just something to be aware of, and that it shows the value of a project manager. And yeah, something that I noticed, you know, all of the tech writing I've done really in my career has been online, and writing a book is unfamiliar because all of a sudden you can assume context. You can assume this linear paradigm, right? So not every page is page 1, really. It was kind of liberating to realise that I could, that you can assume something, like, you know, you can assume a page before and a page in front, and there's context. That was just a bit of a mental shift I had to make when I was writing. It was quite unfamiliar and different, but yeah, interesting. Okay, I'm going to see if I can fit all this in, how a book gives back. So this is kind of where I want to talk about why you guys should consider, why you folks should consider writing a book for your product and how it may benefit your organisation or your community. So in terms of Typo 3, they've got their own shop. All proceeds from the book, from the sales of the book, go back into the community. So it's not really a profit-making venture here, but perhaps it could be for you. I'm not sure. So you may be thinking, we've got a website, we've got great official docs. If a newcomer comes to our product wondering about it, we can send them to the website. If a new dev comes to our product, we send them to the Quick Start Guide. So I would argue that a book answers that need much better. You're not just talking to one audience. A book can cater to quite a broad readership, and it can link out to your existing resources. So you're not supplanting what you've already got, right? You can carefully curate your content. So it just lets you, so yes, you've curated your website, you've created your official docs, hopefully you have some control over that, but a book really lets you mindfully put together the content in a way to meet a clear goal. So this book says new developers to Typo 3. They can read the book from cover to cover linearly, sequentially, work through all the chapters, do all the guides, and bonza, you know, they are well catered for. The book also talks to experienced devs who are unfamiliar with Typo 3. They will be able to skim the chapters. They can scan the guides. They probably won't work through them, but they can definitely dip in or cherry pick. And they'll be able to use the book to just get an understanding of the system architecture, how it hangs together, the development approach, and our coding standards and guidelines. So they won't have to kind of wade through docs to find that out. We've presented it to them in this nice little package. Maintainers and decision makers. So perhaps people are evaluating CMSs and they want to get a feel for the release cycle, how to upgrade, performance, security, caching, all that jazz. They don't have to wade through the website to find that out. They can just read it in the book. This is a totally unsolicited thank you that I got from a developer in the community. This is not a doctored screenshot. It's from Slack, and it's Sasha saying that he liked the book and he wished he had it when he was learning Typo 3. So one happy customer. The cool thing about a book is the affordance. You don't really often get a chance to use that word affordance, but the affordance of a book is interesting. It's different to other content. You can pick it up. It's tangible. And that means it's cool for events. You can share it around. You can display it on your bookshelf in your Zoom background. It's kind of like a bit of swag or something. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, okay, and so here are some things that were new to me as a tech writer after we wrote the book. There's all this kind of promotional stuff we had to do, which turns out is actually quite interesting. So we had to build a companion website, typo3book.com. That's not essential, something you can do. We wrote articles, not really about the book, we wrote articles about Typo 3, and our call to action was about buying the book. I've spoken on a few podcasts. We've done some speaking engagements, like author interviews and stuff about the book. What else have we done? Social media. We did a Q&A, an author Q&A on Twitter, which I've never done before. That was kind of interesting. And, you know, we gave the book away as prizes. Speaking at events and conferences, meetups, talking about the book. Skill Display is a company that lets you track your skill set if you're aiming toward accreditation or certification. And so we added some learning paths from the book to Skill Display so people can use it towards gaining an official recognition of their learning. This is the motto for Typo 3. And yeah, so I'm wrapping up now. This is the kind of what I want people to take away from this talk is the idea that for your product, your organisation, your community, consider a book. It is a valuable asset for your community, and it can sit alongside your existing resources. And there was one really cool thing I wanted to say, and I've completely forgotten now. It's gone. No, is it there? It was about, what was it? Oh, yeah, I forgot to say, books ain't dead. Print books still outsell ebooks. And although, the information in a book can date, it's obviously not as up-to-date as online content. I think it still occupies a really important part in that world of technical content. We reached the end, 30 minutes. Thank you for listening. Flickstar.com is my website. I'll put a blog post about this talk there for any reference material that I've used. And thank you for your time. Please ask me some questions. Okay, bye-bye.
We have a really healthy number of questions from people, so I figure we'll dive in. There was one that Sarah had asked a while back. She was asking about marketing and I guess in particular with how you might market to the German audience. And she had asked if you know whether Germans are spending a lot of time in bookstores and are what's that about?
Yeah, look, I can't comment, but but certainly I think that there is still a market for technical books. I think people are definitely still buying technical books. So I don't have the numbers on how many people have actually bought our book. But yeah, so I don't know if people are hanging out at bookstores. And I certainly don't think we had a window display full. But yeah, I really should try and get some of those stats to beef up my presentation.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you mentioned also that the print books will outpace the electronic editions in sales.
Yeah, apparently that's true, according to my very limited research.
Maybe it's just because we spend enough time at the screen anyhow, so it's nice to look at some paper.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Looking at some other questions. Michael Hopwood. Michael had asked, what is a positivity pass? I think that's something that you'd mentioned early on as well.
Yeah. So that's something that we have in our, it's like I guess a formal part of our internal editing process. And so what that involves is when we're editing our internal colleagues' work, or even we have clients who write work that we edit for them, we always do a positivity pass, which is basically to call out the strengths of a piece of writing. So rather than go in and tear it all to shreds, or even if all of your criticism is constructive, it's still also really helpful to tell people what they did really well, and particular parts of writing that they really nailed, or things that you want them to keep doing. So yeah, that's something that we always do, and we really like helping people feel good.
Yeah. On that note, let me share a question that we have from Anna Karina, one of our speakers yesterday. She had asked, how do you balance giving room to contributors with keeping a consistently good quality of style and format, and especially in a way that's not very time consuming?
Yeah, I'm sorry that I missed yesterday's sessions. I was asleep. Yeah, I think that we were lucky. So we did create a style guide before we started writing the book. And we were fortunate that community members who did contribute were happy for us to edit their text and basically just kind of accept what they'd contributed. There wasn't too much of a back and forth in terms of what community members had contributed. I think because they are developers first, not writers first, and also a lot of them had English as their second language, so they were quite happy for us to just take what they'd contributed and adjust it to the style. Yeah, I think that would have been much more challenging if we had to do a few more, I guess, back and forths with people. Yeah, that would have not been pleasant.
Understood. Wow, more questions. So we had also a couple of questions about the process you may have used in Google Docs. One question from Jadwiga. Jadwiga has asked, did you use Google Docs for the whole book? Did you split the content into chapters with each chapter having a separate Google file, or did you use a different way?
Yeah, that's right. So we did have, so we had those four overview chapters. Yes, one Google file, one Google Doc, and then each of our 10 guides, a Google Doc for each of those. It worked pretty well. So we shared that with it amongst ourselves, with the community, and then we kind of handed that over to Apress, who worked in Microsoft Word, who then passed it back to us, and that's where it got a little bit hairy because although you can upload Word docs to Google Drive, when you open that file, it gives you, I'm getting really into the weeds here, but when you open that file, it gives you a choice. Do you want to keep it as a Word doc or convert it to a Google Doc? And I tried to keep it all in Word because I thought, okay, well, we're in the publisher land now. We're working for Apress. Let's keep it all in Word. And then my boss came in after I had done some edits and he converted them all to Google Docs. So then we had two documents, it creates a second file. So that was a little mini nightmare. But we got onto it really quickly, and our project manager, she put the rules in and helped keep us all on track. So yeah, I would say overall it worked really well. We just needed to be aware of some of those finer points of the process.
Makes sense. We have time for at least a couple more questions, and Karen Cameron and I had a similar question in mind. We both have questions about the future of the book. Karen had asked, generally, how do you handle changes to the product being the book in this instance, and what would be the trigger to update and republish the book? And I was wondering if you were planning to do any future editions as well.
Yeah, it's I don't have a good answer for that. So we did, we started writing it when the product was at version 9. It took us a little over a year to write. So in that time, they upgraded to the next major version 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then we published, and now it's been out for about a year. They're about to release the next major version, version 11. So that is a question. The book we intentionally kept high level so that we wouldn't have to update it all the time. The guides, I guess, will date because they are procedural. We do have that code repo on GitHub where we can possibly maintain some of those changes. We did have a view to add more guides as the spirit moved us to try and, I guess, get a really comprehensive set of procedures. But yeah, I think there's no easy answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at the moment we haven't got plans to update it or write another one, but I don't think every major version of the product would be enough for us to update the book because we kept it at such a high level where the bones of the product aren't changing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. We do have a few more questions. I mean, we're running a bit out of time. There's some more questions from Jadwiga and Eve and Patrick about stuff. Sorry. But I guess I'll just take this moment to say thanks again, Felicity.
Thank you.
I will that we do have Lightning Talk signups still open until 12 o'clock today. And yes, wonderful to see you today.